Our world is full of stories that sound almost impossible, the kind that make you wonder where reality ends and fiction begins. Today, we are diving into 4 of those exact stories. From the ocean's most haunting cold case to a 10,000-foot freefall that defied every law of physics. The extreme choice of a doctor left with absolutely no options. And the lone teenager who managed to humiliate an entire empire. Turn off the lights. Turn up your volume. Let's begin. The ocean's greatest cold case. Imagine boarding an abandoned ship in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, only to find warm food on the tables, a ticking clock, and not a single living soul inside. This is the terrifying reality of the Mary Celeste, history's greatest unsolved maritime mystery. In December 1872, a passing vessel spotted the ship drifting erratically. When investigators stepped onto the wooden deck, their spines tingled. The ship was in near-perfect condition, fully rigged, with a massive 6-month supply of fresh water and gourmet food untouched. The captain's personal journal lay open on his desk, with the last entry written just days before, showing absolutely no panic. More shockingly, the cargo hold was still filled with 100 barrels of highly valuable industrial alcohol. Yet, Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife, his young daughter, and the entire 7-man crew had completely evaporated into thin air. There was no blood, no signs of a struggle, and no pirate damage. They left their money, their clothes, and their lives behind. For over 150 years, everyone from the FBI to royal historians has tried to crack this cold case. Falling 10,000 feet and surviving. Imagine looking out of an airplane window, seeing the wing explode in a flash of lightning, and suddenly finding yourself falling 2 miles through the freezing air, still strapped to your seat. No airplane around you. Just you, the clouds, and the terrifying green abyss of the Amazon rainforest screaming toward you. This isn't a Hollywood movie. This is the harrowing, documented reality of 17-year-old Julianne Kupska. On Christmas Eve, 1971, Julianne and her mother boarded LANSA Flight 508. Mid-flight, the aircraft flew directly into a massive, pitch-black thunderstorm. Lightning struck the fuel tank, tearing the plane apart in midair. Julianne described the sound of the wind roaring past her ears as she spun through the sky in a freefall from 3,000 meters high. Against all mathematical and physical laws of survival, she didn't die. The thick, interlocking canopy of the Amazon jungle acted like a massive net, cushioning her impact. When she woke up the next day, she was completely alone. Her mother was gone. The 91 other passengers were gone. She had a broken collarbone, a severe concussion, and deep, open wounds. But she was alive. But surviving the fall was only the beginning of the horror. Blinded in one eye from the pressure change and wearing only a simple mini dress, Julianne was trapped in the deadliest jungle on Earth. For 11 agonizing days, she waded through crocodile-infested rivers, bypassed jaguars, and endured freezing rain. Worst of all, parasitic flies laid eggs in her open wounds, causing flesh-eating maggots to hatch inside her arm. Driven by pure survival instinct, she remembered her father's advice. Always follow the water. She tracked a tiny stream into a larger river until she finally stumbled upon a remote lumberjack shack. The workers found her, treated her wounds, and flew her to safety. She was the sole survivor of Flight 508. The doctor who had to perform surgery on himself. What would you do if your appendix was about to explode, but the nearest doctor was thousands of miles away? In 1961, a 27-year-old Soviet physician named Leonid Rogozov was stationed at a remote base in Antarctica during the brutal polar winter. Suddenly, he developed severe abdominal pain and realized he had acute appendicitis. If it ruptured, he would die. With no aircraft able to fly through the blinding blizzards and no other medical help available, Leonid had only one terrifying option. He had to operate on himself. Using a meteorologist as his assistant to hold a mirror and a flashlight, Leonid cut into his own abdomen without general anesthesia. Working purely by touch and using a mirror that reversed his movements, he accidentally sliced his own intestine before successfully locating and removing the infected appendix. After a grueling 2-hour surgery, he sewed himself up and survived. The teenager who humiliated an empire's air defense. At the height of the Cold War, the Soviet Union possessed the most sophisticated, multi-billion-dollar air defense network on Earth. Yet, on May 28, 1987, the entire superpower was completely humiliated by an 18-year-old amateur pilot from West Germany named Matthias Rust and his rented Cessna. Rust wasn't a spy. He wanted to create a symbolic bridge of peace. Armed with just 50 hours of flying experience, he modified a tiny Cessna 172 with extra fuel tanks, took off from Finland, turned off his radio, and flew low to evade radar straight toward the heavily fortified Soviet border. What followed was a series of unbelievable military blunders. The moment Rust crossed the border, Soviet radar actually picked him up. 2 supersonic MiG-23 fighter jets were scrambled to intercept him, flying so close the pilots could see his plane's markings. However, due to severe bureaucracy, confusion, and communication breakdowns, no one gave the order to shoot him down. Even worse, commanders were incredibly hesitant to pull the trigger due to a recent international scandal involving a shot-down civilian Korean airliner. As Rust flew deeper into Russia, absurd coincidences kept him safe. Air traffic control mistook his Cessna for a friendly domestic training helicopter, and later, his radar signature blended perfectly with a routine maintenance flight near Moscow. He was arrested 2 hours later, but the political damage was done. The historic blunder gave Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev the perfect excuse to purge his military, firing the Minister of Defense and hundreds of anti-reform generals. By decapitating the old military guard, this teenager's crazy stunt accidentally accelerated the collapse of the Soviet Union.